Good morning, it's Vlogmas day 13. This is our box here, medium size, and last time we got a chipmunk from Chippendales. And alright, let's open up box number 13. Up! So cute. Winnie the Pooh with antlers. That's adorable. I like that one. Hey everyone, welcome to Vlogmas day 13. These days are just going by so fast. But for today's video, I want to share with you my very intense reading schedule for January 2018. Now I know there's a lot of discussion on Booktube regarding like competitive reading. Are we competing with other people on how many books we can read? I want to just tell you that I am not competing with anybody but myself. If you've been following my channel, you know that I've been kind of in a reading slump. I haven't really completed very many books this year, but I am starting to feel better. I took a long break and I want to get it back into reading, and as I said in my past videos, I'm trying to get through the books that I own to get rid of the ones that are not my favorites because I am potentially moving again. So those are my reasons why I created like a very intense January reading schedule, and it's something that I want to do. I feel rested enough to where I want to challenge myself come January 2018. So I guess you can call it like my own personal monthly readathon. And I don't know, it's just something I want to do. I'm feeling really good and I'm always up for challenging myself. And in this video, I'm not going to focus so much on what books I'm reading. I'm focusing more on my strategy and how I determined my monthly reading schedule come January. So for this time around, since I knew it was like a monthly challenge that I'm challenging myself, I decided to print out like a monthly calendar, and that is this here. I don't know if it's gonna focus. That is this here. You can't see it. I will try to focus it when I get more into the details. So as far as my reading schedule for January, my goal is to read about 2 books a week, a total of 11 books. If I so happen to really be on fire and I complete books early, I will continue to add books to my TBR. That's one of the reasons why I write in pencil, is to make those alterations as I go. So to begin, I needed to choose which books I wanted to read, and normally when I put together a TBR for like a weekly readathon, I will just kind of look at the title and be like, oh yeah, I feel like reading that. And a lot of times once I start reading it, I find that I'm not really feeling it. So when it came to choosing the books for my January TBR for this reading challenge that I'm putting myself on, I decided to read a few pages of each book that I picked up just to make sure that it sounds interesting to me, just to make sure that it's something that I would want to read come January. So to avoid that issue of cracking open the book, reading the first couple pages and realizing I don't really like it, and then putting it away and finding another book. So I'm trying to really be prepared in knowing what books seem interesting to me for my January reading schedule. Now, in preparation for next month's reading challenge, I did like a time study on how fast I read. So essentially I set my timer for 5 minutes and I just read straight through with no distractions for 5 minutes to determine how fast I read, how many pages I can read per minute. And I am not a fast reader. I, on average, read probably a page a minute. I know that varies depending on the type of book. You know, if it's like heavy in the details, it will probably take me longer. Or if it's like a very simple YA book, I could probably read faster. But on average, I found that I read a page a minute. Now, this is important to me when I put together my reading schedule because how I laid out my reading schedule, I know that during the work week, I probably can't read that intensely, you know. I'm gonna burn myself out. I do have a day job and sometimes I do work very late. So during the work week, on average, I'm just reading 1 hour a day. On the weekends, for the most part, it's like an hour and a half. There is one weekend where I'm reading like 3 hours on one day, but it's not a big deal. It's the weekend, you know? So that's part of my preparation. I know that I read about a page a minute, so I knew that I didn't want to set myself up to fail by scheduling 3 hours of reading time on a Tuesday. That's just not going to be realistic, and that's when you start to fall behind. So I chose my books. Now on the back of my reading schedule calendar, I created a key for myself off to the side there. I have like an abbreviation of what the book title is, because when I write it on my calendar, there's not a lot of space, so I want to make sure that I can write in what the information that I need to in each little box. So if you're new to my channel and you're not really familiar how I create reading schedules, I always write my schedule in pencil in case I change my mind, or I switch my books, or if I'm behind and I need to remap out my page goals for the day. But how I do it, I will make like a page goal for each day. I will write down like the book title, in this case it's an abbreviation, and I will write down the page number that I want to get to for that day. And one of the little things that I added for this calendar, because I knew that I was reading a lot of books for January, or that I want to read a lot of books for January, is that in the corner of each day I put the total minutes of how much I would read that day, like how long I would be reading that day. And the reason why I put down like how many minutes I could expect to read each day is because I don't want to over set the goal. I don't want to set the goal too high to where it's unrealistic. And then if you're doing it like your own reading challenge, if you make the goal unrealistic, especially early on, that's when you tend to get like discouraged, and that's when you start to like, you know, not really enjoy what you're doing. You're not really enjoying the challenge that you put yourself on. So yeah, that's why I mapped out each day how many minutes I'm going to be expected to read that day. And that's why, like I said earlier, it's very important to kind of do a time study on how fast you're going to read. Like for me, it's page a minute, so it's very clear, like I can read 60 pages in an hour, you know? So that's really helpful to know that when you're setting your reading goal for the day. So one of my challenges for January is to complete books. I said this in a previous video that 2017 I picked up a lot of books, but I didn't finish them to completion. So some of my TBR for January are books that I have partially read through already. Like these 4 books here, I have already partially read through. Like this one, I'm like practically nearly done. And this one, I started reading it. I have quite a long way to go, but it's a book that I was really enjoying. So with my reading challenge come January, I know I still have a few months remaining in December, and I'm feeling like really good about myself. I want to get back into reading. I'm very much in a reading mood, which is definitely an advantage, and it's why I wanted to do my reading challenge come January. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm sorry if that noise is distracting. Like my neighbor is taking a shower and it's just incredibly loud. So hopefully that is not too distracting. So even before January begins, I'm already doing some prepping. So I'm going to be like nursing, like I like this book. I don't want to push myself before my reading challenge even begins. So I'm kind of like nursing this book. I'm just gonna read a few pages every night, just however much I feel like. So come my January reading schedule, I will be a little bit ahead. And one of the benefits of like reading the first few pages of the book before you put it on your reading schedule is to know if it's one of those books that's going to require more brain power than some other books. So for example, one of the books that I wanted to read, I still have the price tag on it, is this book here, Saturn Run. It got good reviews, but I noticed in the reviews they said that it was a little bit heavy in the science details. So in that sense, in my mind, I think it could be hit or miss for me. Like either I will really enjoy it, or it will be one of those things where it's like very detailed in the science to where I'm reading it very slow because I probably don't really understand it. So for this book here, instead of like trying to read it all in 3 days, I really spread this out over 2 weeks. Like I'm reading a little bit every day for 2 weeks and then I'll complete it. And the reason I did that is because I'm kind of mentally preparing that if it is heavily science-based, that I'm not exhausting my mind trying to get through it in like 2 or 3 days, you know? Now, I am the type of person that will read multiple books a day, and you're probably thinking like, wouldn't it be more effective if you just read one book at a time? I think it just depends on you as a reader. For myself, I can't read one book at a time. Like I don't know what it is. I have ADD, or I get very bored. It's not necessarily that the book isn't good, but I crave multiple types of books at once. So for me, it's my preference that I read multiple books at a time just to keep my brain interested. I don't know if interested is the right word I'm looking for, but for whatever reason, it helps me to read multiple books at a time. So one of the things I have experienced through past readathons, through past reading schedules that I have put together, is like falling behind. So one of my strategies to help me not fall behind is to get ahead. So for example, if on one of my days it's my goal to read for 30 minutes, that I want to read 30 pages, if I'm really enjoying the book and I don't really have anything else to do, I will try to read for longer, but I won't put a time limit on myself. I will just kind of read for longer, for however many minutes that I feel like, until I feel done, you know, for that day. And that's one of my strategies, is to read ahead. So on my reading schedule, I'm still on track, and if anything, I'm a little bit ahead. So when I have those days where it's like unexpected, maybe I'm working later that day, when it's an unexpected day to where I'm just exhausted, or if I'm working late, I know that I kind of already read a little bit ahead in my reading schedule, so it's not that big of a deal. But if it's the opposite scenario, where I was supposed to read, say, like 100 pages that day, and I fell behind, maybe I just only read half of my goal that day, the next day I will try to catch up. Or if it's very clear that, you know what, I'm not going to catch up in the next day or two, then I will erase that part of the reading schedule and remap it out. So maybe instead of like finishing the book in 4 days as I originally anticipated, I might spread it out over a whole week. So that's why I write in pencil, because nothing is set in stone. You never know what circumstances are going to come up, and it's easy just to erase and remap out the schedule based on the circumstances that happen that week. Now on my reading schedule, I did leave some cushion days. Those are the days where I'm only scheduled to read for like 15 minutes that day, and that is like days that I'll use as like catch up, or days that I'll use as just, you know, if I need to rest. If I feel like resting, if I don't really feel like reading, those are my days where I can just take it easy. And as far as January, I honestly think January is a really good reading month, because here on the East Coast, it's getting colder. Like it's supposed to be like 28 degrees tomorrow. That's what I think I saw on my weather app, and it's supposed to snow. And come January, I would expect, that's the month that it snows a lot, right? Or am I thinking incorrectly? I would just expect that come January, it's going to be cold, it's going to be snowy, rainy, and I'm just going to probably not want to go anywhere. So January is a good month in my opinion, because I will just kind of want to stay home and cuddle under the blankets and not really do anything too intense as far as being outside. So that is how I put together my reading schedule for January. If anything, I hope that gave you ideas on how to like choose books for a readathon or a TBR or what have you. So yeah, if you have any plans for January as far as reading is concerned, let me know down below in the comments, and let me know if you think this reading schedule is too intense or if it's too easy. Let me know your thoughts. And that's all I have for today. I just wanted to share like my reading schedule for January. So thank you for watching, and I will see you later.